that, I wanted to remind you that the point of this panel is not to talk about Plone 6, but to imagine that Plone 6 has already shipped, and now we're talking about what we see, or what this panel sees, and what really you see as the future of Plone, looking at Plone 7 and later. So please, let's not talk about how do we do things with Volto, but let's think beyond. Let's draw out the ideas, the things that could make things work better for us in Plone 7, and not really worry about, do we have the manpower or do we have the money, but let's just imagine it, because this is how new versions of Plone become a reality. It's somebody has to come up with an idea of a problem they have and find out that other people have the same problem, and together they come up with a solution. Okay, so the kickoff question I'll start with is, what would you personally like to see as the 3 or more biggest changes between Plone 6 and Plone 7? And again, please don't constrain yourself with any technical, financial, or resource difficulties. So, Paul.
Yeah, well, I described it as my pony. What I would really like is to have some sort of machine learning, for instance, to provide alt tags for all images. There has been large improvement in describing what an image does, and we all know that editors never fill in the alt tags for an image, and it's important for accessibility, so I would like machine learning to come in to fill in a default that's at least semi-usable, that you can override if you have something better, and the same for giving keywords. A lot of my editors don't give keywords. It should be possible to give reasonable suggestions and thereby increasing the use of metadata like tags. Next one, what I would like to see is actual scheduling that works. So if I have a press release that's supposed to go out on Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning, it should not be visible in any way. Even if I know the URL, it should automatically transition its state from private to published at that moment, or maximum 5 minutes later when the cron job has finished. And when the end date has been set, it should really, really disappear and not just be not findable, sort of. And third, and I know this is sort of in the league of a printer that actually works, what I would really like is reliable, intelligent pasting from Word and from email. I know that's an impossibility, but it would be great.
What, me? Oh, okay. I'm not as well prepared as Paul. First of all, I would like to get rid of lots of the old craft that we have in Plone 5 right now.
Feature.
Right. That's what it's a feature. Yeah, it is. For me, it's a feature. I'm a programmer, right? So, because the problem in Plone is that we solve problems in multiple ways over time, and then again and again, and we moved to to using blocks now as a kind of first-class citizen in Plone 6, right? Because Plone 6 is done already. So. Then it's time for us to get rid of all the old stuff, right? Like Python 2 and browser views, right? Because we have a REST API as a headless CMS, so we can get rid of 2/3 of our code if we finally made the move to Volto and everything. That's about it. That's my biggest wish. Maybe I don't have bold dreams like Paul, but I'm a simple person, right?
Okay, I could continue from that. So I agree with Timo with that we should get rid of all the currently visible server rendered user interface from Plone that we see that's Barcelona teamed. As much as I like Mosaic and stuff, currently we are using it a lot. I'm hoping, I believe that in Plone 7, Volto has feature comparative with Mosaic and all we have current, so we could use the normal user could use Volto for everything, there would be no buzz on the team, but we should embrace the CMI, the new bootstrap for CMI, and move all the user interfaces that you could use to break your site. All those should go in the CMI. So you have clearly separate CMI user interface for managers that know what they are doing, and then the Volto interfaces for users that are just using the Plone as a product.
Can I maybe? If that's okay, I hope that's not rude. No, because that's something that, like, the wonderful work that Asko did, like, brought me to something else that I would really like to have, because we trained a lot of like new colleagues in the last like 2 years at Kit Concept, and we trained them only in front-end technology, right? Like they learn React, they learn Volto and stuff, and for them it's still like it's easy. It's not too hard for us to explain them the concept of Plone, but allow them to tinker around with Plone, right? Like create content types through the web and like do everything like what Asko was like is trying to do in like current Plone, right? Make it really easy for people to customize things, to maybe add content there, right, by default. And I would like to see that you don't need any like Python programming language. I mean, I love Python, right, as a programmer, but I would love to see that if you can like do 90% of the work that we like do today at Kit Concept in our backend as like somebody without the need to like learn Python, right? That would be really great.
I'm going to repeat what Philip said. No. I was thinking along the same lines, but that we would actually make a better way to make it easy for people to create content types in Plone. I guess it should be a debate whether that could be in Python or in JavaScript or through the web, depending on where we want to go with Plone in the future. But I
did want to remove the Python, like doing
no,
Python,
yeah,
right? Just as an option.
yeah. All in favor of making content types with Python. What else would I do? I've asked a lot, and I have to say that a lot of people agreed with both of you to remove a lot of things in Plone, like the craft, like Python 2. Everyone wants to be on Python 3. We're there. I've heard things. I'll give a short. I asked everyone around, like also the PHP people, and I got get rid of ZODB, get rid of pickles, get rid of generic setup, get rid of XML and ZCML. So get rid of acquisition. So we've had it all. But I guess opinions will vary, and we as a community will have to make a decision on it. I would personally like to get Plone back to a more Python and not too many different technologies, so we're headed in the right direction. And the other big feature that might be a university thing, that we use Plone as a CMS, which works perfectly for hundreds of end users, ranging from secretaries to professors to real developers, and they all use it very well as a system. It's very well, very easy to theme it if you make one house style. One use case that we miss in Plone, or again, I don't know if Plone should fulfill it, but we would want to promote it as a very user-friendly CMS to a lot of smaller people who need a website. And for that, I am still lacking in the future some easy way to create custom themes. Like, we lose most people who want to make a small website to WordPresses and Drupals because they have like a huge theme galore. And again, I don't know if Plone wants to go there, but if you want people to know what Plone is and how user-friendly it is as a CMS, I am missing some form of easy theming, which might be easier when we have like a Volto way of theming things, but at this point we don't have it yet, so that's one of the things we would like to have.
Okay, I'll continue a little bit about theming. So as long as I remember, we have been searching for an easier way to theme Plone. We have tried many things. In the beginning, you could just change variables in Plone to get different colors in Plone Classic theme. Then we had Django, and now we have Volto. Okay, so we tried to make Plone theming easy, that you could theme with Django without knowing Plone. That still didn't make Plone very popular, more popular because of that. It seems that while we were trying to make theming easier, actually the themes itself, theming in our development outside Plone has moved more complex. We try to make theming possible through the web, but themers are actually running Webpack on their file system, doing all that crazy React stuff. So I would like to turn things around. So in Plone 7, I would focus on making the backend customization through the web easier. All the fun stuff from Plone 2 and 1.5 and 2 that was possible then through the web. And let the themers do the hard file system development they want to do with Webpack, React and Gatsby.js and everything. But let's make the Python thing easier for a while.
I totally like most of what you said. Two things I wish for Plone 7. One, total pipe dreams. I want a form editor. We can easily be reused as a dexterity schema editor that has conditional fields and conditional field values. There's that's constantly the one thing where you need to decide, okay, I gotta write my form by hand, or very complex Z3C form thingies, and add some ugly JavaScript to that. We should have the technology in React and other things to create such forms and export them, I don't know, as JSON schemata, and create Python schemata from that, and I don't know. I want that. I don't care how you do it, just please, give it to me. The second thing is theming is really hard, that is true, but even customization is really hard. So we used to have a tool, I think it was the first add-on that our release manager, Eric Steele, has ever written. It was called Glowworm. And I think we need Glowworm NG3 for Volto. And what it does is, if you click on something, so you enable Glowworm or whatever you want to call it, and it shows you actually where this component or whatever it is comes from, and allows you to customize it. And if you don't have a customization layer yet, it creates a correct Volto app for you, and it dumps a new React component in there, and it opens the IDE in a different tab, which is the browser, I don't know, Atom running in the browser, and you can customize this thing at let's say that's that moment, and it's not stored only in the database, and then you can export it into your file system and put it into Kit. So that would allow theming and customization to have, the first step would be much easier. At the moment, people who start doing Plone are overwhelmed by possibilities and features, but they just want to change the color of the toolbar. Not a chance.
Okay. Oh, Paul, did you want to say anything to that?
No, are we moving on?
Oh yeah, I think we can move on to the next question. So we're going to talk about pain points. What are the main pain points you have with Plone nowadays?
I've got one.
We've heard some, but
okay, I've got one. Okay, I'll just continue. One pain point. So so when you create a new content type, I'm talking about Plone 5.2 now at the moment. If you create a new content type and you add it to your site, it doesn't show up in the navigation. And everybody thinks this is stupid, and this is wrong, and it is probably not only me who thinks that is wrong and stupid, because the Plone gods have decided that new content types should not show up in the navigation. So what bugs me beyond being able to pronounce it is that nobody created an issue for that, or a pull request or anything. It's a tiny thing that I actually know who messed that up. That was me and Eric during the last Plone 5 sprint. We needed to do some migration. This needs to be done. Let's do it this way. And after the release, I figured out, oh God, we got this. Like, this is not right. But in the community, there are so many smart people, but a lot of them are obviously afraid to question simple things that they probably are bugged by, because I'm bugged by it, and I think most people are, but they're not changing that because they think it is being decided by some secret committee, and this is how it's been written, and it should not ever be questioned. And this is not true, because Plone is what you make of it, and if you don't change it, It will be changed at the last 5 minutes before the sprint ends, before we have to make a release, and these decisions are not always good. And so please own the product. This is what bugs me the most. People use Plone, they love Plone, but they're annoyed by some things, but they're not even, they're afraid to mention that and fix these things. So this is your product, do this.
I would agree. For me, yeah, pet peeves, well, it is the theming. And most of all, you can create a theme from scratch, but the original meaning of CSS was cascading style sheets, and the cascading part is what we sort of don't have right. If I just want to make some slight changes to what's already there, it's rather complicated. My eternal pet peeve is the byline. Really, I don't want the author to show, and there's like a button to say that, but it always shows in some view. That is super annoying. And also our handling of times. Yes, there are people who do want US English as the site language, but who also want sane time notation. So if I set my site to US English, could you not set my date to crazy months, day, year, whatever? I want to choose those things independently because they have nothing to do with each other. And the last thing is that it is really hard to enforce accessibility at the moment. There is no way to say, like, you have to fill in an alt tag for images, you have to fill in a description for each content item you say you create, and do some other things to make sure that the content quality stays okay over the lifetime of a site. So I would like more mechanisms to enforce, or at least strongly suggest from my editors that they fill things in.
Me? Yeah, I'm happy with Plone 5. Yeah, one of the things that bugs me in Plone 5 is like the entire frontend stack, right? I mean, that was basically the reason why we like wrote Volto, right? Because if a client asks us in Plone 5 to like change like a small like widget, then we basically like have to tell them that we have to rewrite the entire thing in React, because that takes us a lot less time than like fixing the actual issue. So, but that will be gone in Plone 6, right? Yeah, and one thing that I would like us to like also fix is like kind of behaviors, like how we like structure behaviors right now, because when we built the REST API and Guillotina like built the behavior thing from the scratch, it became clear that like there's a lot of like overlapping between like the different concepts, and we have now like we have the forms, we have the behaviors, then we have blocks now or tiles, right? So we have like 3 or 4 different layers of like flexibility, and which is great to have flexibility, but it's like a bit too much, and I would like to see like to reduce the overhead there for like our Python programmers, right? So that they don't have to like those like large stacks of complexity, which also served like as well in the past. But we at some point we have to like take a step back, I think, and look at what we have and how we could optimize that.
Okay. I hate our Dynamics editor's link dialog. Linking dialog, it's ugly, and there are no key bindings are working anymore. Also, I am also expecting to find some normal key bindings from the user interfaces like that. For example, if I'm editing a page, I would expect if I press Ctrl-Enter, it would actually save the page. Now I need to go scroll at the bottom of the page and click the save, or then I find the first input field that I know is. If I press Enter there, now it will save the page. Yeah. So key bindings and TinyMCL link model. My pain points. Also, I don't know how to properly configure a navigation portlet.
Yeah, I'm sort of pretty happy with Plone, so I'm thinking about it. It took me. Someone had to say it. Should should I come up with something? I don't know. Okay, I won't. I'll say it later.
All right. So I'd like to ask this question now. What makes you envious when you look at other systems, like web frameworks or content management systems?
The one that I use regularly, and actually it's the only feature of it that I'm jealous of, is web forms for Drupal. That is so incredibly powerful. I often have to create forms with multiple pages, with conditionals. So like if you've said yes to this question, you get to ask the next 17 questions. If no, it jumps right directly to the next. It has lots of add-ons for like, here are 5 options, 5 answers, drag them in your favorite order, so you can do polls and stuff. It is immensely powerful, it's quite user-friendly, and it's hard to get that, well, it's reasonably user-friendly, and it's super powerful, and I use it almost on a daily basis, and it's so far superior to what we have that's my main envy point. And the other thing is, well, I'm now also using Castle. Their content quality checks we should totally steal. It's okay, it's open source, we can steal it.
Just one thing, a lot of systems have a total disregard for their customers and their users, and I totally love them because they don't offer any migration path. And doing migrations is really hard. I'm spending a lot of time on that, and our story is excellent, but it would be so nice to not have to care about any of our actually users. But okay, that was just a joke. But it is sometimes it's good to shed some weight.
I would really like to have the speed and image optimization of Gatsby.js. That's one part, and the scalability of Guillotina. That would be nice.
Oh, well, I don't know any other CMSs.
Asko is happy. What am I jealous of? Also the form generator, the diagnosis of content. Godefroy, if you're watching this video ever, let's work on Collective Jekyll, because we can add a lot of rules. We actually use it at our university, and you can actually really easily adopt that, so we'll do that. What am I jealous of? But as I just heard a very interesting talk about our documentation, is actually sometimes a sort of quick start documentation. Like it took me years to get used to Plone. It will probably take me some time to get used to Volto, but a lot of other systems I quickly look into. Like there's a View School IO, and there's the whole Gatsby tutorial, and there are many more that I quickly go to, and I can usually get set up and have something running on my local machine within an hour or 2 hours that actually does something. That so far is not true of Plone, but the way that they do their documentation with like screencasts and very short, quick ways of getting an application run, that I would really love to have for our Plone documentation.
Okay. I'm going to be jumping around. There's a list of questions that we have, but just to warn you, how can we remain approachable for enthusiasts? Yeah.
Well, I think Kim already answered. I think it's very vital that we have, I mean, well, let's not be mean here, but it's one of the successes that Django had was that they had a perfect introduction. You never got beyond that, but the introduction was really good. And we need that because we need people that grow up and don't get into contact with Plone people, sit alone in their university hall in Kenya to follow this tutorial and get excited because they have just built a functional website. So I think that is really important. And I think it's also important that we make sure that we have easy tools to get your content in and to get your content out, because that is a very reassuring feeling to know that, okay, if I ever decide this is not for me, I have not spend all this time working on my content, I can still get it out. And I know we have those ways, but we should publicize those better and maybe make them easier and make them export in easier to use formats, because it's just a very reassuring thing, not only for developers or for young people or older people getting into the technology, but it's also very important for decision makers. If you can show to a manager like, well, if we don't like it, we can always get our content out and switch to something else. That is a good argument to make.
For beginners, it's hard to install add-ons. Build out is a totally new, huge hurdle they have to jump over. So a app store for add-ons that you can install add-ons from a running Plone site would be a nice thing. Also the customization story, again, Glowworm, yeah. That would definitely help, because people don't want stock Plone, they want Plone. And also a deploy to star button in your site, to static site, Gatsby for example, or deploy to AWS or whatever, would help them get from, okay, I've been tinkering a little, now I want to get online and, I don't know, do stuff.
One thing that I saw happening to like our developers and lots of like other developers is that like the power when you use like the most recent like hip tools, right? What that makes with your team. Like for me, like from a business perspective, the final decision that I took for like using React and Volto was actually when I saw like how much fun like our developer team had actually with that new technology, right? And how much energy we had. Like that was energy that I like saw last time like 10 years ago or so when we were young, right? So that was definitely one important point. And I think with Volto we can go with the flow, right? And we can keep up with the pace, right? With the separation that Plone REST API gives us, we have now the chance to actually like keep up with the pace. That's like one part, but the other part I saw when we started to go more into the React community, right? There's something that or the JavaScript community, it's something that they are really missing, like what we take for granted in our communities, right? Like, I mean, the feeling of the community, and that we do sprints together and all those kind of things, right? We started to actually do React sprints, right, in Bonn, and we started to like organize bar camps, which we did before in the Plone community, right? And every time I go to a JavaScript conference, like I have to explain them like what we do with sprints, right? And that's amazing. We did an amazing job building an open source community, and also like building the bodies that are necessary for that to govern the open source community, like the Plone Foundation and stuff, right? So this is like the second point that I think it's incredibly important, and that we can actually give to like the JavaScript community, for instance, or for to other communities, right? And if we bring those together, that brought to us as developer like lots of like joy in our daily life, right? And yeah.
Okay, back to Plone 7 as a product. So obviously we have Plone can be installed with just pip install if you wish to, but because from Plone 7 we need that node server running Volto and everything, we need machine learning packages, everything. We obviously we have Conda constructor based installer, so it can install all the dependency you need. But also, why I want as the emphasis on CMI is that I would like to have an area where it's safe to do dangerous things, like so make it more fun for tinkerers. So you don't know that actually it would be possible to make REST API endpoints through the web from technology perspective. We are just missing the UI for doing that. Also, it would be possible to have add-ons installed just by downloading from the internet and saving them to the database. So add-ons could have Python code and register API endpoints and all things like that. That would be technically possible. We are just missing user interface for that. So that kinds of fun things for Plone 7.
Actually, everything that I was thinking about has already been said. I would like to stress again that what Timo said about community, that I do think for newcomers that is very important, but from my experience, I have always been welcomed here. I have not heard of anyone who has not always been welcomed by the community or treated well. So I'm very happy about that.
All right, and so now I'm going to ask, what will our theming story be? Will everything need to happen through Volto, and where does that leave Diazo?
Yes and dead. Easy answer.
So yeah, regarding Diazo, I mean, technically you can still use it, I guess. I think the experience when I talk to people about like Diazo is like, I'm in the Plone community for quite some time, right? I did like standard like themes. I did Diazo. I liked it a lot. I actually worked on a project where this was like written, where Martin and actually wrote that, and then we moved to Volto, right? And in the end, it turned out over time like the estimate that we give our clients to do a theme is the same. All the time. Like Diazo is pretty amazing. You can do in five minutes, you can like do a theme, right? And like really impress people. But that gives you only like 2% of the work, and then you still have to do the rest anyways, right? So in the end, like the amount you have to put into theming is like, will be the same, as at least that's my experience, right? So that's one part. So if you want, you can use Diazo, but I think it's not the right tool, right? That was like my experience over the last like years. And the second thing is, the question is like, how do we want to do theming, right? Do we want to build like the next complex theming solution that comes out of the Plone community, that's our own, or do we want to embrace like the flow that the JavaScript or the React community is going, right? I mean, the great thing about like JavaScript or React is that you can like just grab things that you want, right? And that won't change, right? It will move fast, and you want to use the latest library, right? And that approach only works if you like kind of like rebuild the things over and over again. That sucks, and for a Plone developer that sounds like a horrible thing, right? Because you want to like have a component architecture and like complex ways of overriding things, right? But there's a cost to that as well, right? And keeping things simple allows us to go with the flow of like the rest of the JavaScript community. And if we do the same thing that we did in the last years and creating our own like complex thing, then we will have to pay for that in the future, and we will have to maintain that, right? And the great thing about Volto is really that like we lift off the heavy lifting to other people, right? By reusing stuff that's already there. I mean, for instance, like the theming mechanism. We are using the theming mechanism of semantic UI, right? We didn't like invented that on our own. That's the thing, right? And that lift off lots of work from us. And I think we should continue to do that. And that's my personal opinion. We have to like see how that goes, right? If somebody comes along, I mean, Plone is a duocracy. If somebody comes along and like integrates Diazo into like the server-side rendering right away, or like applies it later, sure. I mean, be my guest. Go ahead. But yeah, this is nothing that we will do, or that I will do.
Just a small addition. I agree. I'm super in favor of Plone 6 shipping with Volto as the default theme, but I'm also super in favor if someone came up with a beautiful new classic or HTML, I mean page template thingy theme. That would be excellent because it would fulfill a lot of people's requirements. I'm not against that. I don't think anyone would argue with that if a Plip would come around, but we have to pick our battles.
Plone theme Tokyo.
For example.
Just a side note, like in a good tradition of the Plone community, we already have like 2 themes technically in there in Volto already, right? We have a default theme and a Pasanaga UI theme. So yeah.
No Hello Kitty?
No Hello Kitty yet, but go ahead.
Any other panelists want to answer the question about Diazo? No?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I've done some Diazo teams, and it does sometimes work in a couple of minutes, but so far for non-programmers or non-me at my university, that no one has been able to do that yet, because everyone hates Excel for one. So I I guess that I'm looking forward to the theming as a thing being handled by something like semantic UI or whatever hot new stuff the JavaScript community or whatever it will be in the future will do. Because I don't see it becoming a core Plone thing. I think we should follow some world standards on that part.
Okay. I'd like to ask some of the questions that people had written on the board earlier today. When will Plone drop server-side rendering?
I think we just added it again, but I'm gonna technical stuff over there.
Anybody want to, other than to say Plone 7? No? No? All right.
Whenever you're ready for it.
Oh, I don't understand that question, to be honest, because
Remove
like
the templates, the whole
that's templating. So Python server-side rendering, because we have server-side rendering on JavaScript.
Oh, yeah, right.
So.
Yes. Yes, I think that was the question.
Okay, I mean that's open for debate, right? I mean it's nothing that we have a process for that, right? We have a framework team, we have flips, so it's something that like somebody needs to flip that at some point, and then we have to discuss this as a community. Of course, personally, I would like to hear what people think, right? If we have to support that beyond like or in Plone 7, right? Or if we can deprecate that. For Plone 6 is always like the idea is to keep like the old classic UI like fully functional, right, and ship Volto as the default theme, so you can still like do whatever what you did in Plone 5 and Plone 6, right, just without Python 2. And then after that we have to like decide what we do, right? If we want to like support that until forever, like we did with archetypes and stuff, or if we want to rip it out. I don't have a strong opinion on that, right? Because I can live with the fact that like we still have the Python parts in there. I don't mind, but as said, we could reduce like I guess 2/3 of our code, which would be a good thing.
It's just, at the moment it doesn't hurt us. It hurt us like 1.5 years ago when we needed to port it, but since we are dropping CMF form controller archetypes, formlib and all that nonsense, we can keep Z3C forms and template chameleon stuff around. When it starts hurting us, someone will write a plip, maybe even before, to get people moving. But there's no immediate need at the moment. It's like, doesn't really hurt.
Anybody else want to say?
It will hurt, and okay, one thing. When a new plip will come in for Plone 7, and it's like a new feature, or even Plone 6, and the proposal is to implement it in page templates. This is, I would say we should not accept that, because every new feature we put in should be implemented as an endpoint, if it needs an endpoint, or a Volto component. And at some point we can, for Plone 7, I would say so, we can accept plips for new features that have no server-side rendered user interface. That may be a point where we say, okay, we're slowly cutting off these things. But again, there's a process for that.
Okay. All right. Another question that was submitted was, how much of the REST API would, for example, Django CMS need to implement to be considered to be Plone?
Well, if for me as a non-technical person, honestly, an API is a promise, and if somebody keeps 100% of that promise, that's it. If Guillotina does that, and somebody switches my Plone from Zope to Guillotina and I don't notice it, I don't care. So they would have to implement 100% all the promises, otherwise it doesn't work. But that's the idea of an API. That's sort of like we should extend that and say like all the functionality that we expect should be defined in that API, should probably even make a mock for the things that not even exist, say like this is what we in future want to promise. And indeed, if that is like identical for whatever backend, then I'm like, yeah, use whatever backend suits you. For me, as a person who maintains sites, honestly, if somebody rewrites it in Perl, I don't care.
I think the correct answer is 180% because Plone is not only Plone, it's also the add-on ecosystem, and maybe even 240% because Plone is also the community. And if you move the backend to Django, I guess a couple people will ask for the nearest exit. Also, I don't know what we would gain from that. Maybe, I don't know, some Django people will know how to pronounce Plone, but will they then move to Plone if they have the same API? Don't see a point there.
Yeah, from a technical point of view, I think the only system that is like would be able in the future to like replace the current Plone backend would be Guillotina. As someone who has like worked with Django and Django REST framework, I think like to fully replace that would mean to rewrite that thing from the scratch. Because like the way Django works, like with the ORM, with the relational database, and then Django REST framework on top of that, makes it incredibly hard to match the API. Not incredibly hard, but I mean that would be actually like, it would be doable. It would be like strange and it would look incredibly ugly, but that might be doable. But then like we would like still like miss all the features, right? I did consulting for like a Django company, and I tried to like implement like things like workflows and permission metrics, like things there, right? And it's so incredibly hard to build those things from the scratch. Even if you have smart people, if you have a large group of smart developers, that's super hard to do. And that's like still one of the core features that Plone has, and that not many other like systems have. This like tight integration of like of permission acquisition and workflows, right? And that would be incredibly hard. So I would never like dare to actually try that.
Let's go. No? All right. No? All right. How will Plone run 30% of sites on the internet? And in other words, how will Plone recapture mindshare? Recapture mindshare. Well, I think some of you have kind of touched on the subject, which is if we're at least going to maintain Plone's interest.
I refuse to discuss marketing in a bigger group than two. But part of market share is the developers, because they so people actually using it and they introduce it to their the companies they work on. And a small thing, since we haven't discussed that part yet, would be to be better at introducing different types of new developers, newcomers to Plone. So we've been discussing a quick start developer guide for Plone to replace or to amend the training story with mastering Plone, for example, and have that not only for Python developers doing like a pip install Python, and then you do a Python schema and all the Python thingies that Python people love, but also have a quick start Plone developer thingy for front-end developers, and have that a very good story, have videos for that, and pull people in with these excellent tutorials that are not only really good, but also they know who they're talking about. Are you a Python developer? Are you a front-end developer? Are you a tinkerer, a user, a person who comes and says, I want to try Plone, and where he goes then is Plone.io. Plone.io is going to be a software as a service provider run by the Plone Foundation, and it will provide you a database tier for free until a certain stage. It will come with a couple of add-ons that you can use, and you can go. You can start your own Plone site. You can, if you're a front-end person, you can use Glowworm to do some component development. If you're a back-end developer, you can get access to whatever virtual machine that thing is running. And if you want to go further, you can say deploy to company of my choice, and that's going to be, I don't know, Syslab, for Teamwork, all of the big Plone players, Kit Concept, Startle, and whatever, and they're going to take the big project live for you and help you deploy that. So these make it easier to get into, would make it easier to gain more market share. But again, this is not marketing.
Like I'm totally biased on like the topic, of course, but the reaction we got with Volto, like in the different like kinds of people, was like overwhelmingly positive, right? I mean, I went to lots of like JavaScript meetups and conferences and like showed up Volto there, and like from the React developers, the response was always, oh, I had no idea that like something that sophisticated is like available in React, right? Of course, they are scared away that we don't have a Node backend and like Python and stuff, right? But that's the reaction we got so far, and people are really interested, right? If you go to a React meetup or a JavaScript meetup, usually they do Barcamp style things, right? And you pitch your topic, right? And I went to the first React Cologne meetup, and like I pitched with Volto, and I thought that like they were like totally bored and like nobody would care. And actually like most people, like my talk was like highest voted, right? And I was like, totally what? Why are people interested in like CMS? That's boring, right? Yeah, I think when it comes to React developers, like Volto and Plone are really like appealing. And for the developers, I already said that like our developers have really a lot of fun like working on React, right? Like exploring the new thing and stuff. So and from our clients, the feedback is also really positive, right? So they like it. I'm not sure if market share really means anything, because as a Plone consultancy, I'm not after like getting more market share, right? I don't want I don't want to use Volto for instance for small sites, right? I mean, Gatsby is like a perfect match for us for like for small website, right? I run the like website of my like for my mother for like on WordPress.com, right? And it's also like it's the right choice. It's like I spent like half an hour. I hate the user interface, and I still need like 10 minutes to figure out what I have to do there. No, I love my mother.
Philip, take his microphone away, please.
Okay, I continue from the fun part. So, Plone has always been fun for me as long as I have to install the add-on. So I would focus on the out-of-the-box experience. Make sure that you can customize everything that customer is able to make that customization really work. And to continue on Philip, if we would have Plone.io, then we would, and if we had money on top of that, then we would cooperate with Gatsby.js, Gatsby Incorporated, to have a button on their Gatsby preview service that click this button, then you get the Plone site, and you can develop. And on that Plone.io site, you can customize using all the fine, great custom content type features, create the structural content you want, just from the browser, without any knowledge on Python or running build out, anything of that. And then you would use the Gatsby documentation workflow for creating an amazing theme for that.
I think what I want to say is related. What I see around me is that all front end is going to be JavaScript, and where a CMS needs its functionality now is, as a basic, it should provide an easy way to create custom content types. I mean, there are a lot of CMSs made now, like, I don't know, Contentful, Netlify, CMS, Trappy, that focus really on that creation of custom content types. Where I see Plone shining, and what I hear all around me, and what I see failing in a lot of custom software projects around me, is that part where you have, like you said before, the whole roles and permissions and workflow thing. If we provide a way for normal users to be, well, or a bit advanced developers to provide that whole model in an easy way, I think that would improve to help put Plone on the map, because I see people fighting with it all along, or rewriting the whole thing in a JavaScript thing, or rewriting the whole thing in Laravel, and then I think, why are you doing that? This is all built in. And I think they're all crazy. But I somehow can't seem to explain them that Plone does a lot of these things out of the box, or pretty easily, without me having to do much. But of course, I'm not doing their projects, so I just leave them. But I think we have a lot of good functionality that might be useful for any JavaScript front-end stack or custom web application.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? We're out of time, but I do want to say again, to reinforce what Philip was saying about Plips, is that every one of you who uses Plone, who has some itch that you found Please don't suffer in silence. Please don't just kind of complain to your spouse or your friends. Get on the forum, talk about it, post about it in the forum, and you might find that other people around you have similar issues with Plone or some improvement idea. Just today at lunch, I spoke to Olivier from IMEO, and we came up with 3 ideas that we didn't realize we each had some problem about, and we're going to try to push that. But PLIPs are like that. If you have a need that you want to see in Plone, you can also file a PLIP and get the discussion going. So with that, I want to thank our panelists. Thank you very much for your thoughts on the future of Plone and Plone 7.